The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz, and Tony is off in rehearsals this evening as we tape this. He's in a play and could not be here. However, we are very pleased to be joined by someone equally as talented, Miles Maguire from the Oshkosh News Network, and he's been gracious enough to say that he would help fill in for the shows that Tony couldn't make. So thanks again to Miles for being here.
Thank you.
We've been interviewing candidates, of course, here in the area. We've got a primary election coming up on Tuesday, February 21st, and during the course of the last few weeks, as will be the case for the next few weeks ahead, we've been interviewing candidates for the various positions. So far, we've covered most of the candidates for Oshkosh Common Council, and some of them for Oshkosh School Board. Tonight, we'll be joined by three more candidates running for 3 seats on the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education. All 3 seats are being sought again by the people holding them. But we've got a newcomer with us tonight, and this is Michelle Monty. Michelle is making her first run for the Oshkosh School Board. So welcome, and you've been a guest before.
Yes.
That was before you decided to run. You were just a parent who had some concerns, and apparently those concerns have spurred you on enough to make a decision to run for council, I'm assuming?
Yes, definitely. You're right. I am just a parent. I'm also a taxpayer. I am also a community member. And I am not really liking how, not so much how, but the direction that the school district is taking at the moment. I don't feel that we're getting the results that we've been promised for several years now. And I think, maybe it's time for a change, and maybe it's time for a swift kick in the backside to get things moving again.
Can you give us a specific instance of something that's not going the way that it should be going?
For several years now, communication has been a big issue in the district. Mm-hmm. And it's been such a big issue that we've been studying it, and we've been studying it, and we've been studying it. And 2 years later, we've decided we're going to do something about it. And a year later, we're still doing something about it. The problem is nothing's happening. Mm-hmm. Right now, we finally moved forward on a facilitator, which is good, but the website is still not up after several years. There are no newsletters coming out to the districts. There has been virtually no attempt with the district administration to form a partnership with any of the media outlets. I don't think enough is being done. At the same time, there are still issues that come before the board where the parents are not being heard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and along with that, Michelle, is all this money that is being put into this Blue Door Consulting. Now, how do you feel about A, putting money into a consulting firm, and B, do you think it's necessary? Because they're also advocating, as you well know from having attended these meetings, they're advocating the hiring or creation of a public relations position, something that the school district had for a number of years, and then a few years ago did away with it in an attempt to save money. And now Blue Door Consulting says, well, we need to do this study, and then we should hire this position.
Well, they've done the study. There was a 140-plus page
that
study.
was the first part of this
Right.
whole thing, and leading to the climax of hiring a PR
Right.
person. I mean, what are your thoughts on all of this?
I guess I'm very disturbed that we need to not only hire a facilitator, we also need to hire a public relations person. We've had committees, we've had the PR position in the past, and that's not the problem. Getting the information is not the problem. The problem is getting the information from the PR person or the PR steering committee out to the public. That has been the problem. Now that problem supposedly will be solved with the facilitator. So again, that leaves the question, why do we need a separate PR person if the job is to be done by the facilitator? The other thing that bothers me about the situation with Blue Door Consulting is the answers they came up with are the same answers the district already knew. These are things the district knew were problems. There were issues in the consulting firm's report, like the district has duplicate resources. The report never really went into what those duplicate resources were. I asked that at school board meetings. I have yet to receive an answer. What are the duplicate resources? If we have such things, do we not need to find out what they are so that we do not purchase those things yet again? And those, I'm not sure Blue Door Consulting is a necessity. To this point, there's been little in the way of results, and I'm not sure if that's because there are no results or just that the district chooses not to share those results with the general public.
Okay. Well, school boundary issues is one of the things that the facilitator is seeking information about from parents. Now, you know, boundary issues have been discussed for a number of years. Some major boundary changes did occur when Traeger Elementary and Middle Schools opened 8 years ago, but you know, as far as the two high schools, the boundary has always been the river. But we've got a problem with Oshkosh West just bulging at the seams, and we've got to do something about that. I mean, what do you think should be done about these boundaries and you know, sort of balancing the enrollment between the two high schools?
I think we need to take the information that we have as far as the enrollment numbers between the schools, and we need to decide where would be a better position. I think then we need to take it to the parents, and we need to let parents know that as a district we understand that there is loyalties to a certain school. There is family tradition at certain schools in the district. But the reality is, to provide the best education, we need to keep the classroom sizes below 25 for optimal face-to-face time with the instructors. So I think we could start small, and the first recommendation I would make is that the high schools, instead of having one single lunch for the entire building, and with Oshkosh West bulging at the seams, as you said, that's a tremendous amount of people just out in the halls and out in the community. Instead of having one lunch, maybe we should start with a scheduled lunch, 2 lunch periods, 3 lunch periods, have them scheduled by grade or by programs or whenever it fits into their schedule, so that we don't have every student out at the same time. That's where I would start, something small. But then I would go and I would say, okay, this is where the boundary is. These are the borders. Go to the families and say, would you have a problem with your children next year going to the other school? What would be the problem? What would make it a better situation for you? See if there are parents who would voluntarily be willing to change schools to alleviate some of the crowding.
What kind of incentive would make a parent do that, do you think?
It may be an adjustment to the curriculum. Maybe there's a class that's offered at Oshkosh West that is bursting at the seams because it's such an interesting topic that could be taught at both schools, not as full-time. Maybe it's taught full-time at West, could be taught part-time at West, part-time at North, just to bring some of them back. Without having all of the information, I can only give you tentative ideas.
So would you recommend then changing, not using the river any longer as a boundary for the high schools?
I think it served its purpose. I think it's outlived its purpose. But I think we have to look at the population and not the demographics of a map.
Okay. 4-year-old kindergarten, you know, that's a concept that is being talked about in practically every school district around, no matter where you go, and certainly Oshkosh Area School District is no exception to that. How do you feel about 4-year-old kindergarten?
I don't think it should be mandatory. My youngest son is 5. He is at St. Francis Cabrini in the 4-year-old kindergarten enrichment program, which is kind of between preschool and regular kindergarten. His birthday is right on the border. I think in his case, he was ready. He was ready for something. He was not he would not have done well just sitting in daycare or sitting home for an entire year. I think in his case, he had the maturity, he had the intelligence to be in that type of a program, but not every child is ready for that. So I think it should be a voluntary situation, but I do agree that the option should be there because all the research shows that the younger you can get to a child, the better chance you have of discovering if there is a learning disability and overcoming it. The better chance you discover if a child is gifted in an area and nurturing that gift. The better chance you have of stimulating the brain to develop neurons that are much harder to develop later in life when the brain is already developed, such as foreign language. It's not a matter of taking curriculum and cramming it down the 4-year-old's throat or a 5-year-old's throat. It's giving them an appreciation for education. It's putting them in an environment where they can blossom without having to worry about grades and schedules and things like that.
If we look at the school district overall, how good is the school district, do you think?
I think we've got some tremendous qualities in our school district, and I think we have some areas that we really need to work on.
Okay.
I think our strides in curriculum, in trying to come up with the most state-of-the-art materials, graphic design, a lot of the vocational education, keeping abreast of the latest technologies. I think we've done very well in doing those things, but there are others that we seem to sacrifice on a whim. VIP program, teen parenting program, because it just doesn't seem to reach enough numbers, and it's a numbers game. And I think that we have to look past that to the fact that these are people and not statistics, and that if you're losing one, you're not just losing them, you're losing their children, you're losing their families, you're losing a lot more that could have benefited the community. So I think, I can't grade the district. I think we've done very well, and now we can let what we've done well work for itself and start working on the things that we need to make better strides in: reading, math in the high schools. Why are we losing these kids when they get into high school? Why are so few testing at proficient? We need to focus on what's important and leave the consulting firms and the PR and the logos and the brands and the advertising for a business.
Okay.
All right. We're running out of time. Why don't you, Michelle, take a look into camera 3 and tell folks why they should vote for Michelle Monty on Tuesday, February 21st.
My name is Michelle Monty. I am not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm not going to give you a line. I'm not going to figure out what's going to make you happy. I'm here to do what is right for the students of this district. I'm here to listen to you, something that is sorely lacking in this district. I'm here to work for you. I'm here to work for your children. I'm here to work for this community. I'm not going to tell you any lies. I'm not going to make up stories. I'm not going to blow anyone off. I'm here just to listen.
All right, very good. Thank you much for being here. And we will be right back. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by one of the incumbents from the school board, Amy Weinschein. We'll be right back.
We just escaped.
I escaped. By foot.
And run across the border.
I couldn't practice my religion.
I was put to work in forced labor camps.
If I stay in Cambodia, I would have been dead by now.
If you think differently, then you're an enemy.
If you know how to read and write, you're dead. You speak your mind, you're dead.
The only way to express what I wanted to do was to get out.
I got to the country when I was about 14 years old.
I was 20.
I was 24.
I came here with nothing. No money, no English.
America stood for freedom, it stands for freedom, and that's what all my generation, young generation, wanted to be there.
For the first time, I felt like I have a right to be on this earth.
Here, you can do whatever you want to do.
I love my life here. I feel at home.
I'm free to do what I want.
Freedom to me means my life.
How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
If only child abuse were this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. All calls are anonymous and confidential. Trust your instincts.
Poor nutrition today will increase Sarah's chances of anemia, add to her healthcare costs, sick days, even stunt her ability to learn. And the thing is, Sarah's not even born yet. Get proper nutrition before it's too late. Call or visit WIC. WIC provides nutrition information, healthcare referrals, even food. Your child has you, and you have WIC.
Welcome back, and we are now joined by Amy Weinsheim. Amy is one of the 3 incumbents on the Oshkosh Board of Education who is seeking re-election. She's completing her first term?
Yes.
Right? And they're 3-year terms, so she's seeking her second 3-year term. I think people probably know who you are, Amy, but why don't you tell folks a little about yourself and why you're seeking re-election?
Well, my name is Amy Weinsheim, and I live right down the street practically from here. I have 4 children, and I own Oshkosh Jazzercise, so that is my workplace. Why I'm running for re-election? Sometimes I ask myself that. At the end of the day, I just felt like I needed to throw my hat in one more time. I feel pretty strongly that I've been an asset, and I've really enjoyed the last 3 years. It's hard. I wouldn't say it's been fun, but I've enjoyed the work, and I guess I like my job there.
Okay.
Are there some things that you've sort of set in motion that you kind of want to keep rolling along?
I don't know that I've personally set anything in motion. For the last 2 years, I've chaired the policy committee, and I really do enjoy that, and have done some work with. Currently, we're writing a wellness policy, which is required for the school district, and also did some work on fundraising, updating our fundraising policies, and taking another look at that. I also sit on the Partners in Health Committee, which I enjoy. It fits right in with my own lifestyle, my own work. It's a nice component to be able to kind of join those two. And they had previously not had board members interested in serving with that committee, and it's a great committee to be involved with, to promote health and wellness with the staff, and help keep those health costs down.
One of the, we're going to talk about a few different things here, but one of the things I just wanted to real quickly bring up with you, Amy, was you were, when the Oshkosh Symphony wanted to be able to serve liquor when they performed at the Civic Auditorium, you were one of the ones who was in favor of that. And I thought that was the right decision, and yet we've heard from some members who just feel that is a deplorable decision, that it sets the wrong tone and gives the wrong image for students. Can you just elaborate for viewers why you supported that? I mean, it didn't pass, but...
Right. I felt like it was a very fair question of the symphony to ask. The auditorium, in my perception of the history of it and how it came to be, was that it is to be a community auditorium. Most arts organizations who have performances do serve beer or wine at intermission. That's not unusual. And I just didn't have a big moral objection to it. We're not serving liquor during school hours, and we're not serving it to students. And we did indeed look at a policy that would keep it only at Alberta Kimball. And I felt that was fair for an arts, it's an arts venue, it's an arts organization, it's something that most arts organizations do. So it just did not offend me. But as I said when we voted on it, I was not married to it. I knew that there were lots of folks who felt that it was the wrong route to go. And
Well, one of the things that you guys continually are getting beaten up on, including by me, is not a big surprise, is this lack of communication with the people in the district, and not just with parents, but with all of us who are paying taxes into the school system, whether we have children there or not. And you guys are hiring consultants and you're doing studies, and now you're talking about rehiring or recreating a public relations position. Why can't the district just, for example, start a show like this? It costs nothing, and these shows are widely watched. Why can't the district get its message out to people in the community through a means like this, rather than positions being created and that kind of thing?
I don't know that we're actually looking at a position that seriously right now. But
The idea's been floated, though.
Absolutely, and we definitely have hired consultants. As for a show like this, I think it's a cool idea, but we'd still need to have somebody do the show, which would probably mean we'd have to compensate them, depending on who you had do it, unless somebody wanted to volunteer to be the person who did the show.
There you go, Miles.
I think that's a cool idea, Cheryl. I like it.
Well, actually, Paul Esslinger suggested it, and I thought he said that he had come before the school board.
You know,
and
he
had
did.
mentioned it.
He did. That is indeed true.
So-
I recently visited another school district that does have a communications director, so they do have a person in place. But one of the things they do that I think is a great idea, from central office, they do create some centralized information that goes out to everybody. Now, the district, I shouldn't say we, it was prior to my term on the board, did used to send a mass mailing out that gave information about the school district, and of course, over the course of budget reconciliations, that was dropped, which is unfortunate because it's kind of an easy way, and hopefully people will read their mail.
You know, one of the things that the city manager does here that's great is that every week or every other week he writes a newsletter. And a lot of it is, this is what's on the agenda and this is what's coming up. What do you think about something like that, getting the superintendent to have a regular newsletter that would tell us what's going on?
Probably tar and feather me, but I don't think it's a bad idea. And that's this district we were in. They do a little bit of that. It doesn't come directly from the superintendent, but it's a piece that comes from central office that folks have looked at, and pertinent people have said, yes, this is what we're doing, and yes, I agree that you've presented it correctly. And it goes out to, well, it doesn't go out to everybody. It goes out to all the schools, and then they get it to some key folks in the community to get that information out. And I think that's something that we ought to at least try.
Well, sure, because they could go out to folks like Miles and I who have, we've got websites out there, and Tony Palmieri too. And, I think we're all more than happy to put things like that on our sites to help get the message out. It's not always about bashing somebody or being critical. We want to do our part too. And so, just some things to consider. Boundary issues, that's something that has been going on for a very long time. Right now for the high schools, obviously Oshkosh West is bursting at the seams. The river's always been the dividing point for the two high schools. Do you think maybe the river has outlived its purpose, its usefulness, and how should we redraw these boundaries, do you think?
I do think perhaps the river has outlived its usefulness as a boundary. I don't know that means it'll change. I don't think we necessarily have to actually redraw boundary lines either. I think we could maybe look at some other creative ways to play with that population, especially with the advent of the smaller learning communities and the academies that the principals would like to see happen. If we don't look at duplicating exact pieces at each high school, you could maybe see some shifting of the population just because students are going to be interested in different facets of education. So I certainly think that's something to think about instead of creating exact same programming when we look at the academies. But in terms of actually redrawing those lines, I don't have a perfect solution.
Somebody's always going to be upset.
Yeah.
No matter which way you go. Go ahead, Miles.
No, I was just wondering, do you, I don't know if you're at a position where you can give us some details, but what kinds of things would you have at one school as opposed to another school?
Oh, well, this is just my own sort of pie in the sky. But if perhaps we wanted to have a computer science academy, and somebody else was interested in an aviation academy, which they are actually looking at an aviation academy. Instead of having those same academies at both schools, have one at each school, and you sort of get some natural crossover of folks who want to be in those academies.
Okay. 4-year-old kindergarten, that has been discussed quite a bit, not just here, but in other school districts. It seems to me that when you were on first time, you were in favor of it, or were you not? I'm trying to remember back. But
I don't think
where's
I
Amy
was.
Weinstein stand on this issue now?
I think that's a tough issue, and I knew you would ask about it. My personal, completely personal philosophy, I'm not a big fan of 4-year-old kindergarten, but that's based purely on my own feelings. So in terms of where the district is going with it, I'm a little bit on the fence. I want more information. I'm not sure how I feel about 4-year-old kindergarten being included in our budget when we're, looking at needing to cut dollars. And I know it could potentially turn into a revenue builder because you're bringing in students and you get money for students and all of those little pieces will fit. But space is also an issue, and we're looking at not utilizing our own space for 4-year-old kindergarten, so they've already sort of looked at that piece of it. But I still need more information. I'm just not. I'm not sold.
Okay,
So
well, that's fair. What do you feel that your contribution has been, where your greatest successes have been during this first term?
Well, I believe that I am a fair and rational thinker. I do make every effort to see multiple sides of the issues. And so I think that's, since I'm being asked to toot my own horn, that's my greatest asset and value to that board. I don't fall politically on any wide side, and I don't consider it a real political position. I'm there to serve the community and the students, not to serve a specific agenda or political route of thinking. So I think that's my greatest strength. In terms of what I've done there, well, I've done the work at the policy committee, and I do think we've done some nice work there, and I enjoy it, and I think I've been a rational voice at the board table, and I think that's an important piece.
Okay. Just real quickly, you're on the negotiating committee as well for the teachers' contracts and so forth?
No, I am on the negotiation team for the OPEA, which
The
would be the
paraprofessionals, okay,
paraprofessionals.
good, because that's where I was going. Just very quickly, they're asking for a 5% across the board cut. I'm not and you guys have offered 3.8%. You guys are firm on that 3.8?
Well, that's why we're negotiating.
All right. I'd like to go further with that, but we don't have the time. Now that I've made a goof out of myself. Why don't you look into camera 3. Tell folks why they should vote for you on Tuesday, February 21st.
I think you should vote for me because I'm committed to our education system. I have 4 children. I'm personally connected to it, and I love what I do. And I do indeed try to bring a rational and fair voice to this board, and hope that you'll consider me February 21st. Thanks.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, the paraprofessionals are not seeking a cut. I knew as soon as it came out of my mouth it was wrong.
The panic-stricken look on my face.
Mine too, actually. Thanks very much for being here. And
Thanks for having me.
we will take a short break. We'll be right back. And then we'll be joined by Denny McHugh, who's running for the Oshkosh Common Council. So we're going to shift gears. We'll be right back.
We just escaped
I escaped
I escape.
by foot.
and ran across the border.
I couldn't practice my religion.
I was put to work in forced labor camps.
If I stay in Cambodia, I would have been dead by now.
If you think differently, then you're an enemy.
If you know how to read and write, you're dead. You speak your mind, you're dead.
The only way to express what I wanted to do was to get out.
I got to the country when I was about 14 years old.
I was 20.
I was 24.
I came here with nothing. No money, no English.
America stood for freedom, it stands for freedom, and that's what all my generation, young generation, wanted to be there.
For the first time, I felt like I have a right to be on this earth.
Here, you can do whatever you want to do.
I love my life here. I feel at home.
I'm free to do what I want.
Freedom to me means my life.
How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
If only child abuse were this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. All calls are anonymous and confidential. Trust your instincts.
Poor nutrition today will increase Sarah's chances of anemia, add to her healthcare costs, sick days, even stunt her ability to learn. And the thing is, Sarah's not even born yet. Get proper nutrition before it's too late. Call or visit WIC. WIC provides nutrition information, healthcare referrals, even food. Your child has you, and you have WIC.
Welcome back, and we are now pleased to shift gears just a moment, and we're being joined by Denny McHugh. Denny is running for the Oshkosh Common Council. Denny is a former city employee, and he served on the school board for how many years?
15 years.
Over the course of a couple of different
Five
terms,
terms,
I think.
5 3-year terms.
Okay. And now you're wanting to get back into this mess again. Why?
Well, I think Oshkosh is at a pivotal point in time. You know, you see conflicting things occurring. We have the beautiful amphitheater, we have the water park, we had a growing interest in private donators to provide things for Oshkosh we can't afford ourselves, and our downtown has been beautified, and it looks like everything is just rolling along just fine. But I see some real serious clouds coming in on horizon. For example, almost every department store chain has left Oshkosh. Another example is our middle income class of workers has been devastated. It seems like employers can't get out of town fast enough. We see, well, for example, in the TIF programs that we're using to generate jobs and retail growth mainly in our downtown area, since up until 2001, we spent, according to the library anyway, we spent $124 million so far. But when you look at downtown, as beautiful as it is, it doesn't seem to be representative of a very successful venture. And so we have the Five Rivers coming up. Another thing that concerns me is that particular project, for example, I will be 90 years old before the taxpayers will realize a penny of a payback on that giant project. So we're all 27 years in payback time. And so those are some of the reasons I'm running. Our decrepit streets, I could go on and on. The priorities, I think, are poor. The fees that they're charging, implementing because they claim they don't have enough money, but yet they're going to build a $570,000 floating boat dock by the amphitheater.
Well, let's talk about some of these things. Let's talk about Five Rivers, because that is at the top of, I think, a lot of people's lists, Denny. You know, they're looking for probably about $19 million in TIF money, somewhere between 16 and 19, and that's probably a pretty conservative number. The developer was supposed to have some financing numbers to the city council by January 16th, and that didn't happen. You know, a lot of unanswered questions, and nobody seems to be asking the questions, other than folks like us. We're asking the questions, but the people in the city don't seem to be asking the questions. Where do you stand on this?
I'll tell you what bothers me is the council approved that project without even knowing what the cost would be. Just as at the last council meeting, they approved the beginning of the giant Riverwalk project. Certainly would be a beautiful thing for the city of Oshkosh, but there was no price attached to the overall project in the resolution, just as the Five Rivers project. There was no total cost attached to the resolution. It's beyond my understanding how a governing body could approve a project of that magnitude without being within a few $1 million of estimating the finished cost. I'm talking the parking ramp and all of the things that are planned for that site, the Riverwalk in front of it, the marina, all of those things that are going on, and associated with it across the South Shore development on the other side of the river. They also approved the TIF district for that for some millions of dollars, yet undefined. And so that bothers me that we have entered into these agreements. But as far as the contract goes, Mr. Kinney suggested to the council at the last meeting that because it is such a large contract, we shouldn't be too fussy about the details. And I look at it another way. I think because of the size of the project, we have to be extremely limited in our generosity towards letting deadlines pass without any satisfaction.
What is your overall feeling of TIFs?
I think TIFs are a very valuable tool, but now that they're starting to overlap one TIF over another, as for example, in the Five Rivers project, we have TIF 7, became TIF 13, and now it's TIF 21. We are out 27 years before we will generate enough income, if it ever happens, to pay the TIF off, where the taxpayers will start to realize some so-called profit from the venture. 27 years is a long time. Look at the bankrupt hotel. That, incidentally, is a TIF that has not yet been paid off.
Right.
So what do you think is the underlying problem here? I mean, are the projects not good projects, or is there not good planning, or is it a matter of financial management, or what needs to be done?
Well, I don't think there's anything really wrong. I think that on the part of the developer, it's pretty hard to come up with $50 or $60 million. And I think the key issue may be that our planning department, I think, has done a good job in requiring pretty airtight mechanisms so that the taxpayers are protected from the debacle that we're seeing at the Park Plaza Hotel on the river. And so that, I think, is causing, I'm just guessing that this is causing concerns on the part of the financial group that's putting this on, that they may not be able to meet the strict guidelines we have established for protecting our interests.
Okay. You mentioned garbage fees. I guess you're not in favor of the garbage fees. In fact, you've gone on record as saying that if you're elected to the council, you not just oppose them, but you will bring forward a resolution to have those fees repealed.
That's correct. The garbage fees are garbage. It's a symptom. It's a symptom. When you start charging fees, it wasn't bad, and our budget went up $1 million this year, with the 2% limit by the state of Wisconsin. But that wasn't enough. Now they do these end runs where they start charging fees. Well, they hit a sore spot in Oshkosh taxpayers with that garbage fee. I don't know why that one particularly. Maybe it was a straw that broke the camel's back. But the point is that we should live within our means. Not totally unlike, and maybe it might be simplistic, but in my home we live in a budget, within a budget. Most people do. When we don't have any money, we don't go out. We don't buy a new car. We don't take a trip. Okay. Well, in Oshkosh, if they want to do some of those things that they're doing, instead of a fee, I say go to the budget, cut something out of the budget in an equivalent amount, and go with that. Keep it on the tax roll so at least we can deduct the darn thing on our income tax.
Do you have an idea of what kinds of things can be cut?
Oh, well, certainly. For example, when your budget is made up mostly of personnel, we have 464 personnel. You mean through attrition we couldn't have cut one person or two, or couldn't we have found a program that we didn't? I'll give you an example. In the capital improvement budget for this year, here we're so broke we have to implement fees on our already well overtaxed citizens, but they have $110,000 in the budget for upgrading the skate park over at Red Arrow Park. We have the $570,000 floating boat dock, which we are paying half of. DNR is paying the other half. And then we're also building a $100,000 elk exhibit out at the zoo. Well, you don't do these things when you're broke, but it seems like one half of the society is working hard and working extra time to pay the fees, and the other half is just finding and developing ways to spend it. And I think when a going gets tough, you shouldn't be doing these projects.
But Denny, what they're saying is, and by they, I'm talking about people like Frank Tower, because he just said this at a meeting I was at the other night. Their argument for this is, it's a different budget It's a capital improvements budget, not a general operating budget. I think it's the old shell game, but I'm not running for council this time around. What do you say to council members who use that kind of logic?
Well, I would say it's all money. You can call it what you want. It's money coming out of my pocket. I'm having elderly people in town express to me that they are worried that at the rate we're going, they are not going to be able to stay in their homes. There's a serious concern out there for people who are taking cuts in pay. Their jobs are on a chopping block. They're looking at losing their health insurance. The audacity of a council at this point in time in the history of our city, with so much going on that's negative to our economic welfare, to go and build a large project as if everything is okay and there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But there isn't.
Right. We're quickly running out of time. Liquor licenses and unpaid taxes. You wouldn't necessarily think they go hand in hand, but we've recently learned that in fact they do. So, and there's an ordinance that says if you've got unpaid property taxes, you can't have a liquor license issued to you, or at least where you're using it or something. I don't know. It's so convoluted. It's bizarre. But you know what should be done with these properties that are having liquor licenses in their possession, and they're not paying taxes? Well,
the ordinance is very explicit. They should be denied the liquor license, period.
What if they already have it? Should they be revoked?
They should be revoked, yes, because they had until January 31st at midnight to pay that bill. They knew it. Everyone knew it. It's a calculated risk on their part. These are smart businessmen. They're financiers. They've taken advantage of us long enough. They should pull those liquor licenses.
Okay. All right.
A couple of the candidates have talked about this need to rein in spending, and one of the ideas that's been floated is to either hire a consultant or do some kind of an operational review to see where there may be fat in the city budget. Do you think those ideas have any merit?
No, I think the answer to that is a better manager. If we are not confident that our leaders are performing that function for us already, then we should get some different leaders.
Okay, very good. Why don't you take about 30 seconds, Denny, and look into camera 3. Tell folks why they should vote for you on Tuesday, February 21st.
Well, I think, first of all, I'm a native of Oshkosh. Born here a long time ago, 13 siblings, very poor family. I know how to spend a dollar. You've elected me 5 times already on the Board of Education, and in that position, I was a board president, the board clerk, charter member of the Facilities and Finance Committee. I was a charter member of the Finance Committee. I was a supervisor for the City of Oshkosh for 25 of my 27 years. I know this city inside and out, and I think I know the people. I think I know what you want, and I know what you expect of me, and I can guarantee you, I pledge you the same things I always have in my other elected offices. I'll demand accountability. I'll demand fiscal responsibility. I'll demand open government, and I will promise you that I will handle any questions you bring to me to the best of my ability.
All right, very good. Thank you much. And we're going to take a real short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Lee Wilson, who's running for the Board of Education. We'll be right back.
We just escaped.
I escaped.
I escaped.
By foot.
Run across a border.
I couldn't practice my religion.
I was put to work in forced labor camps.
If I stay in Cambodia, I would have been dead by now.
If you think differently, then you're an enemy.
If you know how to read and write, you're dead. You speak your mind, you're dead.
The only way to express what I wanted to do was to get out.
I got to the country when I was about 14 years old.
I was 20.
I was 24.
I came here with nothing. No money, no English.
America stood for freedom, it stands for freedom, and that's what all my generation, young generation, wanted to be there.
For the first time, I felt like I have a right to be on this earth.
Here, you can do whatever you want to do.
I love my life here. I feel at home.
I'm free to do what I want.
Freedom to me means my life.
How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
If only child abuse were this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. All calls are anonymous and confidential. Trust your instincts.
Poor nutrition today will increase Sarah's chances of anemia, add to her healthcare costs, sick days, even stunt her ability to learn. And the thing is, Sarah's not even born yet. Get proper nutrition before it's too late. Call or visit WIC. WIC provides nutrition information, healthcare referrals, even food. Your child has you, and you have WIC.
Welcome back, and we are now switching gears yet again, and we're back to the race for the Oshkosh Board of Education, joined now by Lee Wilson. This is Lee's second run at the Board of Education. He ran last year. I don't recall offhandly how well you did in the polls, but it wasn't good enough to make it. You're giving another stab at it here. For folks who may not know who you are, why don't you tell us a little bit about who Lee Wilson is and why you're crazy enough to try and do this again.
Well, last year I ran and amazingly collected 22% of the vote. And I think for a man who has little public exposure anyway in this town, I think 22% was very good, and that encouraged me to run again. My name is Lee Wilson, and I am a candidate for the school board here in Oshkosh. My second run. I have 32 years of sales management experience and business management experience, and I'd like to bring a management style to the school board and try to task the administration to do the projects and objectives that are important to the schools, and then hold them to those tasks.
Bring a management style to the school board. Do you think that it's lacking that right now?
I do. I really do. I think the school board is too caught up right now in what I call the minutia, the daily grind, the little reactionary things that you do, and I think that's what the administration should be doing, with the school board actually setting in the agenda a vision, some targets, and then report back. Tell us what you're doing.
So what would be, if you were on the school board, what would be some of the targets? What would be the agenda that you think the school system should be pursuing?
Well, the most important thing, Miles, is that we look at the students. They're the most important constituents we have in this whole process. And what I'd like to see is some very specific improvements in learning processes. I think we're doing some things. I think it's taken far too long. And I think the reason it's taken too long is that the administration will evaluate a process, bring it back to the board, explain it, and they'll mull it over and they'll talk it over, and then by the time you're done, you're a year away and you haven't done anything. We do far too much of that kind of process evaluation instead of, okay, come to us with your best recommendation. What do we do to reduce freshman failure rate? How do we improve our high school graduation rate? How do we address some of the needs of the technical education in the high school? How do we address some of the higher education needs of the high school?
I would think that the response that you would get, or one of the responses you would get to that is, well, you're in business, you're in manufacturing, sure you can do that when you're dealing with, sheet metal, but these are young minds, and it's a little fuzzier process.
Well, I think what the city and the district voters are doing is voting for a board of directors, essentially. This is right now a $105 million enterprise that we're trying to operate. And we have professionals, people who are trained on how to educate children, how to meet the needs of the state, the requirements, the federal requirements, and rather than hold them back, let's turn them loose and say, you do the teaching, you do the education process, come back to us, we'll set the goals and objectives, you tell us how you're going to get there, and as you progress, please report back. It's just like a regular business management process, except this enterprise doesn't generate sheet metal objects.
Do you think at the end of the education process here in Oshkosh, looking at the end product, is that pretty good, do you think, or are there could we be producing better students who are more prepared to go into college or go into careers?
Well, thank you, Miles. That's a good question for me, because my whole campaign last year was all about having the greatest schools in the state of Wisconsin. We have good schools. I work for Alliance Laundry Systems. We're moving some 250 people into new jobs up here. Many are being transferred up from Florida, from our Florida facility. And they're coming up here, and our schools are showing very, very well. And we should be very proud of that and excited that these people coming in are going, hey, Wisconsin schools, and Oshkosh schools in particular, are showing very, very well. But I want the best schools. I want the best schools because we'll have then the best students going out into the workforce and on into university life or the military, wherever they may go. But we'll also attract other businesses. I think the single most important thing to grow a town or a city is to have great education. Schools attract people. They attract businesses. If you put a factory in Fond du Lac, but the schools in Oshkosh are great, people are going to move to Oshkosh and live here for the great school for their children.
One of the things that's not so great within our school district, at least that's what we keep hearing from parents, and I think even the district itself is recognizing this, is their communication skills.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, they've studied this and studied it, and they like to study things. I guess maybe study goes hand in hand with education, I don't know, but I don't think this is the kind of study that we should have in mind when it comes to education. But nonetheless, they've been studying communication and how they communicate, and I guess what they're finding is they don't communicate very well. And now they're trying to make some efforts. Are we going about this the right way, do you think, or should this be handled differently?
Well, one of the things that they did was they hired a consulting company to help them, primarily with the website, but also with communication in general. And I guess I'm okay with hiring a consultant if you don't have skill sets within your own enterprise that can help you get there. I don't know the staff in its entirety. I don't know if they have someone there who can really help them with the communication, but I work in international sales. I have to be able to communicate. I have to be able to communicate in a way that reaches people of different cultures, different languages, different environments. And I would think that with the professional people we have on the board and in the administration today, that we ought to be able to just be very straightforward with people, either through mailings, website, working with the newspaper, having articles published that communicate meaningful information. I can tell you there's a survey out now about this collaboration, Wednesday early release. And it was a very good piece of communication. It was not a very good survey, quite honestly. It was more of a sales piece on this is why Wednesdays are good, and please tell us that we're right. And I was extremely disappointed in that survey because they had specifically said they're going to go out on this early release in collaboration and appeal for input from the community, and their methodology of appealing certainly leaves me a little bit disappointed.
Was that the one, Lee, that went out with the report cards?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I too have heard that was sorely lacking in some things. Do you think that this district needs to hire a PR person?
I would look very closely at hiring a PR person. You can look at the cost of this consulting group and look at the cost of hiring someone with salary benefits, and it's a pretty simple calculation. Is it cost beneficial for us? Is it not cost beneficial for us?
But would the PR person replace the consulting firm? I've not gotten the sense that one would go away with the onset of another.
I would eliminate the consulting company if I brought in a PR person.
Okay.
Yes.
What about just doing a show like this?
I think doing a show like this
rather than hiring a PR
on a
person.
monthly basis or bi-weekly or 6 weeks would be excellent. You could have various people from the administration, from the board, from the staff come in and have an open dialogue with you or Miles or whoever wanted to host the thing and really communicate meaningful things. That's the important part.
They could start their own show.
We could do our own show.
That's right. That's right.
4-year-old kindergarten. I mean, our time is running out here, but let's take some short questions real quick. How do you feel about 4-year-old kindergarten?
Right now, I'm not really for it, and I'll tell you why. Right now, I think the school district has to take a careful look at what we're able to do, what we're doing, how we're funding it. We're in a tight fund squeeze now. How are we going to come up with sufficient funds to do a four-year-old kindergarten? And how are we going to staff it? Where are we going to put it? We've got 87% capacity usage of our buildings. How are we going to fit another set of students? And my guesstimate is it's going to be somewhere around 400, 450 new students, depending on who takes part in it. Where are we going to put them? We really have our hands full dealing with current issues. Let's deal with the current issues. Let's get ourselves moving forward and come back if we have to.
Okay.
How about boundary lines?
The process of boundary line, I'm all for the process that they've started now. They have the facilitator who's going to come in and do these focus groups and do these evaluations and surveys, and it's going to be an excellent process. I'm sure that the school board and the administration will do a very good job with it. The real key to that is to ask the right questions of the right people, and there's where my concern comes. How are they going to identify the right people to go out and talk to and actually solicit input from the stakeholders? The other concern I have, and what I would push for as a member of the board, is to take that process and turn it into policy. The board's known for quite some time that we're going to have a declining enrollment, and that certain schools were going to decline and certain schools were going to grow, and it was going to create this imbalance. They've known this. I'm just amazed that it took so long for them to act on it. And I would like to see this turned into a process so that as we see this coming down the road in the future, you address it well in advance of the problem arising that we have now, and have a process that you can say, hey, here's how we do it.
All right. The paraprofessionals right now are seeking a 5% across the board pay increase. They also want full-time benefits for part-time employees as well as paid collaboration time. The district is offering 3.8%, which is what the teachers get under the QEO, you know, in salary and benefits. How do you feel about, you know, what the paraprofessionals are asking?
Well, the paraprofessionals are an important aspect of the teaching process. Let's not forget to recognize that they are important, and they do contribute something very positive. And I also recognize that they're represented by a collective bargaining unit. And as with most collective bargaining units, or you or me, we go in and we ask for more than we expect to get. So I think this is just part of the negotiation process. It doesn't bother me terribly that they're asking for it. If they expect to get it, that's a financial issue that we just cannot afford to do. They're going to have to find some form of compromise.
Okay. And just in a few seconds here, I mean, what about full-time benefits for part-time employees?
If I'm running a business, as I do, I just don't see how I can justify that.
Okay, all right. Why don't you take about 30 seconds, Lee, look right into camera 3 and tell folks why they should vote for Lee Wilson on Tuesday, February 21st.
Well, thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, Miles, for having me here tonight. My name is Lee Wilson, and I am a candidate for the school board. And I think it's important for the voters of Oshkosh to recognize that they're voting for a board of directors for the school district. And what do you look for in a board of directors? You look for management experience. You look for qualifications. You look for leadership. You look for knowledge. And I have all those. I have 32 years work experience. I have been in sales management, product management, administration management. I deal with foreign entities all the time. That's what I do for a living, so I understand the communication process. And I think I can bring the qualities to the board that would have us looking into the future and striving to be absolutely the best schools that we can be, and certainly striving to be the best schools in the state of Wisconsin.
All right, very good. Thank you much, and if you get through the primary, we'll have you back, and we'll have a little bit more time to chat at that time.
I'm looking forward to it.
Very
Thank
good.
you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Miles.
And thanks to Miles for pinch hitting once again this week. And as always, thanks to you folks for allowing us into your homes for the past hour. We'll see you next time. Until then, take good care and keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.